Us, tributes have been pouring in for Robert Redford, one of the biggest film stars of all time, who's died at the age of 89. The Hollywood icon rose to global fame with blockbusters like Butch Cassidy and The Sundance Kid and All the President's Men. President Donald Trump has hailed the actor as great, while Meryl Streep, one of his former co-stars, said, "One of the lions has passed. Rest in peace, my lovely friend." Karis Garland has more.
With his blonde, tousled hair and charming smile, it didn't take long for Robert Redford to make a name for himself in Hollywood. After making his breakthrough as an affable outlaw in the 1969 film Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, the California native went on to be one of the industry's most bankable leading man for decades. He starred opposite Barbra Streisand in The Way We Were and Meryl Streep in Out of Africa. But it wasn't just romance. Redford also liked to tackle serious topics like politics. He starred in the critically acclaimed All the President's Men in 1976 about the journalistic pursuit of President Nixon in the Watergate era. The 1973 movie The Sting about Depression-era grifters gave Redford his first and only Oscar nomination as an actor. Later, he transitioned into directing and won an Academy Award for his first effort for the film Ordinary People, which also won Best Picture.
I was able to take storytelling further and become a director so I could tell my own stories about how I saw the world. So for me, storytelling is a huge, important element in society. That's how we pass information along.
In the 80s, Redford founded the Sundance Institute and Film Festival, dedicated to cultivating fresh cinematic voices. It helped give a leg up to directors like Quentin Tarantino and Steven Soderbergh.
There were other stories to be told that were maybe more risky. They were more under this heading of independence, but they weren't being given a chance.
The Sundance Institute also gave a voice to rural America and climate activism, though Redford later complained about the commercial whirlwind the festival created, saying he wanted the ambush marketers to go away forever. A committed environmental activist, Redford also fought to preserve the natural landscape and resources of Utah where he lived. Preferring life on his ranch, he created the image of a reluctant star. He also often insisted that his good looks hindered rather than helped him as an actor.
Well, we can talk more on this and bring in Robert Redford's biographer, Michael Callan Feeney. Thank you so much for joining us on the program, Michael. It's really great to have you. I'd love for you to first of all talk to us about when your love for Robert Redford began. When did your admiration for him began?
Well, I'm talking to you today from Le Castellet in the south of France. Ironically, in my publisher, Edition La Trace, in their house in the French edition. In France, being here is so resonant for me of how my journey began. As a kid, I liked to travel. I liked to explore other cultures. I was an Irish writer, an Irish kid who wanted to be a writer. And I started writing about America. I was a dramatist originally. Redford was an artist who appealed to me because of the variety of his films, the amount of stuff he did, and the strangeness of the choices he made and the movies he made. He started off in theatre in the 50s and the golden age of television, when movie or TV series like The Twilight Zone and The Virginian and all those great series were going on. He was cast in them. He didn't intend to be an actor in the beginning. He wanted to be a painter, but he very quickly became successful as a television and stage actor, and then was very fortunate in the end of the 60s to be cast by George Roy Hill in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid with Paul Newman, who became a lifelong friend. And then he was identified as this romantic, iconic figure. And he went on to have, in a sense, three careers. He was the romantic icon pinup. He was the auteur making his own films like Ordinary People and A River Runs Through It and Bagger Vance. And he was in the middle of all that. He was this person who went off to the hills of Utah and started an independent promoting film group, the Sundance Institute, and started promoting dispossessed or new filmmakers and ethnic voices to try and promote a new way of presenting film apart from the Hollywood way.
He definitely was very much champion of independent filmmakers, and he really felt that Hollywood needed a different voice, didn't he?
He did, yeah. I mean, that was a big deal for him. He didn't like the way today, in recent years, television has become about streaming and about, there's the Netflix, Disney Plus kind of generation. He saw cinema as being a kind of sacred theatrical kind of thing. And he felt a lot of Hollywood, especially in the period from about 1990 onwards, became just kind of almost making films by rote, just one film, sequels, copying each other and all that kind of stuff. And that was the absolute opposite to what he saw as being the core of cinema and what cinema should and could be. So he stayed faithful to the idea of making, as far as he could, original and educational films. If you look at his auteur films, Ordinary People, Quiz Show, River Runs Through It, Bagger Vance, Lions for Lambs, there was always an element in them that was educational and had a value beyond just a good story. That was a very big thing for him. Also, I spent so many years with him. I mean, our work together spanned nearly 20 years. So I would spend a lot of time with him at Sundance at his home. He would come and stay with me in Dublin. And, you get into his psychology, you understand how an artist is inspired and how they work. And what I learned was that he was a poet, essentially. He was like Walt Whitman, who spent his whole life writing one poem, Leaves of Grass, which was every aspect of the human condition. And Bob's films kind of amass to a series of essays about what it was to be American, or indeed what it was to be human.
Michael, in your time that you spent with him, did you ever feel and get the sentiment that he was a reluctant star? I mean, when he's been asked about how he was a heartthrob, he very much says that that actually hindered his career. He didn't like the fact that he was seen as a sex symbol. Did you get the idea that he was a reluctant actor?
No. I think Bob, I once made some comment about vanity. We'd rented a house for him close to my house on Dublin Bay. And I went up and we were going out to dinner or something, and he was spending an extraordinary amount of time getting himself coiffed up to go to dinner. And I said something about vanity. And he said, for God's sake, of course I'm vain. That's what I'm paid to be. No, I think he embraced the aspect of the iconic romantic figure that he was, largely for the power it gave him and the money it gave him to invest in making his own films like Ordinary People or River Runs Through It, and underwriting the independent films that gave voice to ethnic voices otherwise unheard. I mean, it's not just Steven Soderbergh or Lind, like other directors like that. It's a lot of ethnicities were involved in the other films that he promoted. He believed, really, he saw this left-right division in American life, and he wanted to be someone who contributed to bringing things together. People often described him as being politically left. He wasn't. He was a centrist, and he was keen to kind of cure the gap in the binary nature of American society.
Let's talk about his environmental campaigning. He very much became an avid campaigner in his later years. Talk to us about how much he cared about the environment.
Well, this is a passionate issue. He was, earlier today, someone was talking to me about him, asking me, was he a genuine activist? He was absolutely an activist. I mean, he was someone who felt that, as I say, he started out wanting to be a painter and then ended up becoming an actor. He said there was a kind of sense of randomness about life. It was a lottery. You never knew when your number would come up. But he was driven to want to do good things. And the environment meant an enormous amount to him. He was interested in, we are going through, in terms of human history, the Epicene era, which is the first era where the Epicene era is defined as an extinction event where species kind of die very quickly. And this is the first one that's ever been caused entirely by human activity, with carbon dioxide and methane in the atmosphere. He was very acutely aware, this is where his interest in science was, and his involvement with the National Resources Defence Council. He was very acutely aware of the threat of severe climate change and how we would imperil the entire species, our own species, and most of the planet, unless we did something. He was active in Native American rights. He believed that Americans had never really come to terms with the fact that they'd stolen the land from the Native American Indians, and he wanted reparations in some way for that. He fought for dispossessed people everywhere. He was a person with an acute social conscience and a desire to contribute. He was active in democratic politics, and till the end of his life, he was interested in bringing together the two Americas, as he called it.
Michael, it's really great to speak to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the programme, telling us about the remarkable life that Robert Redford lived, and also my condolences to you as well, because you spent a lot of time with him, and yeah, this must be a sad day for you as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
He was a friend.